SIBO Doctor community. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Dr. Narala Jacobi, the SIBO Doctor, here with our weekly episode of Do It Yourself Gut Health. It's a brand new segment that we've established since the pandemic, just so we can deliver credible, helpful information about gut health to you, our community. As you may know, if you've been following us, we have an educational platform called the SIBO Doctor, and we basically deliver educational courses to practitioners and patients. I also have a clinic where I see patients. Everything is sort of on skeleton crew, as you can imagine. Everybody is either working from home or we have reduced our hours to keep our staff safe. We also have a testing facility. So we really truly live and breathe SIBO and other functional digestive disorders. And every aspect of our business right now has been affected by this, but we will persevere, all of us, and we will continue to act as a community and provide education for the community and helpful tips. So the SIBO Doctor has like I said, is an educational platform. There's a lot of free resources. If you find yourself in home isolation or shelter in place, it's called different things wherever you are in the world. You can access lots of free resources, not just the SIBODoctor.com, but the SIBO Doctor page where this is being filmed has a video library. I think it's off to the left or right. I don't know where it will end up, but basically if you click videos on the Facebook page, there's a huge library of previously recorded materials that are really helpful. So I've talked about gut health and immunity. I've talked about how to brew what's called a carminative tea, which is a tea that helps with bloating. How to do exercises for reflux, how to, the underlying causes of SIBO. So tons of materials. Last week, we had the wonderful Sarita Ford, who is a hypnotherapist here at the Biome Clinic, give us a 15-minute meditation on gut health and immunity that you can play as often as you like to help calm your nervous system. So that's really important when we talk about gut health. And today, our topic in Do It Yourself Gut Health is going to be the foundation of healthy eating, which may surprise you. It's not really actually the food, but really the mindset and how you approach it. So we'll get to that a little bit later, but I have a few other announcements. So just to introduce it a bit more. So we have, like I said, we have lots of free resources. I'm the creator of the biphasic diet. We have 3 versions of that for people that have just joined us or that are not aware that I've created the biphasic diet. That is a free resource, always has been. It's been used by thousands of practitioners and patients worldwide, and you can access that at the SIBODoctor.com. There's the original, there's the vegetarian SIBO biphasic diet and the histamine biphasic diet. So you've got lots of options there to help your diet or to help you on your SIBO journey. We have 2 support groups on Facebook. We have the SIBO Lifestyle, which is for patients and consumers that want to just have some information about SIBO. It's not really a group to share your own personal case and get expert advice because, as you can imagine, there are legalities around medical advice that we dispense. But it's a great support group. We also post great tips in there, recipes, etc. And then we also have a practitioner support group where we help discuss cases with practitioners, and they can ask questions there and help each other. So really wanting to create a community in this quest for gut health. So that's about the SIBO Doctor. The do-it-yourself gut health really came out of this situation that we find ourselves in right now. You may be in self-isolation, or you may be, you are obviously affected by the pandemic. So it's really a good time to use, if you have the time, and you don't have kids and lots of other distractions and other obligations. But it is a really good time to empower yourself with learning how to take care of your own body in a better way. It's not always about supplements. It's not just about just focusing on the digestive tract. There's a lot of other aspects of health that influence digestive health, and your nervous system is for sure one. Last week, we talked about meditation and how to downregulate your nervous system, or how to get more into a rest and digest phase of your digestion by calming your nervous system. And that is really, really important when you deal with digestive issues. Okay, so what we'll be doing with the Do-It-Yourself Gut Health is a feature which is every Thursday at 10 o'clock Australian time, so or Sydney time. So check your schedule. You can ask questions. You can tune in. It'll also be recorded, so you can listen and view it at another time. But me and my team, so I have, like I said, I have a clinic that is a clinic that focuses on functional digestive disorders like IBS, constipation. We also deal with other more advanced issues like inflammatory bowel disease and anything gut related. This is a really collaborative effort here. We have a nutritionist, Anne Kreiner, who will also join us next week to talk about what does she talk about? She talks about immune boosting foods, or foods that are high in zinc and high in vitamin C, and how to prepare them, etc. So really tune into that one. It's going to be great. She'll also join us at another time where we talk about sprouting and how to grow a little micro garden or a microgreens garden and those kinds of things. Sarita Ford will be back with other meditation tips, and Emily Sugars, our other naturopath, will most likely talk about the magic soap treatment for upper respiratory tract infection. And I will come back with other tips, such as how to make your own cough syrup, etc. So certain things like that. I'm trying to figure out where the comment section is. So if somebody's listening, just give me like a thumbs up or something, then I know where to look on my screen. I have one question from somebody already. I'll get to the questions at the end. So just stay with me here. So that's about the do-it-yourself gut health. Now, the sort of mother of all gut health courses that we've actually created for you, the public, and also my patients that see me at the Biome Clinic. It's a patient course about SIBO called the SIBO Success Plan, and what we're doing, we've sort of done this unprecedented sale just to give everyone access, because if you're home and self-isolated, you can. I'm just seeing. Thank you, Leslie. I got the thumbs up or the smiley face or whatever that emoji is. Good. I know where to look now. Thank you. So the SIBO Success Plan really is something I've created out of my 22 years in practice treating digestive disorders, and also because I had a lot of requests from people all over the world that just didn't have access to qualified practitioners. And so I needed to create a course that it has covers all the different issues that we usually see in SIBO. So it's 8 modules long. It's 8 classes. They're about an hour long. So it's 8+ hours of really great information that you can use to help yourself. And there's a lot of home treatments in there as well. So for example, we start off with what is SIBO, and we've actually made that first lesson free. So you can access that and just educate yourself about what SIBO actually is, because I think there is conflicting information out there. I stay up to date with the most current research. I am a frequent speaker and presenter at international SIBO conferences, where I also hear from other experts. So I feel like you do get a lot of information through the SIBO Success Plan that you might not get just Googling stuff on the internet, because that's just a that's like a rabbit hole, I find. So we start off with what is SIBO, then we go into what caused my SIBO, which is so important, because if you want to ever truly get rid of it, you need to know what caused it. And so we go through the different categories of causes, and we have a free questionnaire that you can complete, that you can either compare with what I'm talking about on in lesson 2, or you can actually ask your practitioner to help you. This course is actually also meant to be worked with your practitioner. It's not in competition with the practitioner at all. And we also go through how to do the diet, the SIBO biphasic diet. Then we go through food reactions such as histamine or salicylates or oxalates or sulfur. So knowing how to identify, knowing when it's not a SIBO symptom but a food intolerance symptom might be helpful for you. Healing a leaky gut. How to really do that properly. What is leaky gut? How does it affect your overall health? So I really left no stone unturned there and gave you all the latest information. And then some specific symptom relief for bloating, constipation, and reflux, because sometimes when you treat SIBO, it can take a while to get on top of these symptoms. And then very important lesson is Calm Mind, Calm Belly, which talks about the nervous system and your not just stress level, but basically your internal state of anxiety or stress, or your interpretation of that and how that reflects on your digestive tract. And then very, very important is preventing relapse. So what we've done, this course, we have, let me see if I can do this. I'm still sometimes not so savvy, but we have reduced it a whopping 70%. So you can now access the SIBO Success Plan for $49. And basically it gives you the very foundation to understand your condition. It's also great for anyone with IBS, because a lot of the same principles apply. And basically it's $49 now. So for that, we can't make it truly any cheaper, because we do have some background costs. So just this is what we can do to offer you some helpful tips throughout the time in isolation well spent. Now, 70% off means it's the same price as my patients get it. So that's pretty much as good as I can do it. What you also get in there, what I forgot to mention, is because we don't sell products, we're simply an educational company, and we don't have a product line. So what I do, however, is you have also access to the SIBO Dispensary guide when you sign up for the SIBO Success Plan, where you can get information of all the different products that I myself and my team has used and found useful, not just for antimicrobials, but gut healers, probiotics, prebiotics, you name it, we talk about it in the SIBO Dispensary guide. So I feel like it's really a wonderful way of getting you up to date as to what's happening with SIBO, and how to help yourself and how to work with your practitioner. Practitioners are also aware of this course, and they also recommend it to their patients, because it's a lot easier to have me explain it than them taking up valuable time in a consult to go through all the nitty-gritty. So it's a wonderful resource that's there for you in terms of purchasing the SIBO Success Plan. Now, let's get to the topic of the day, which is the foundation of healthy eating. Now, let's kind of talk about for a moment what actually happens when you eat, or when you prepare your body for food. So typically what happens is you smell food or you think about food, and because your stomach is growling, or it's time to eat. We've conditioned ourselves very well with our 3 meals a day. So we think about food, we smell food because we're cooking it. And so that process already gets your body in the mode for eating. So saliva starts flowing, and saliva has an enzyme called salivary amylase that gets ready for starch breakdown. And then when you sit down and you have your meal in front of you, and it used to be that people said grace before meals. That wasn't a thing done in my family, but it's a wonderful opportunity to actually just take a moment to prepare, really, and to sit still for a moment, and to switch your mode from doing to just being, and allow, and gratitude that you have this food. So that also then gets your body ready for food. And what happens is your stomach acid gets ready. Your stomach acid is required for the breakdown of proteins mainly. And however, your stomach acid is also required to start the trigger for the release of pancreatic enzymes. So your pancreas makes enzymes that break down your starches, your fats, and your proteins into smaller chunks. And then what happens, you have tiny enzymes called brush border enzymes that are on the microvilli of the small intestine that break down these bigger chunks into the tiniest chunks so that you can absorb them. So that's the process of digestion. If you, for example, if you eat in a very rushed manner, what happens is all of this can be disrupted in a way that you won't have enough salivary amylase, you won't have enough stomach acid, possibly, not always, but possibly, and you might not get enough enzymatic activity on your food. Additionally, if you eat very fast, it's likely that you're not chewing for the length of time that is required to really break down all of your food into absorbable and digestible pieces. So I can't stress enough how important slow eating, slow and mindful eating is. Now, I'm sort of preaching to myself because I was the third of 3 children. We were all fast eaters. We were always like this feeling of I'm not going to get enough. I don't know why. There always was enough, but there was this sense of I have to eat fast. And it's a really, I notice it in myself when I have a lot to do. I'm in a faster manner. I become more unconscious. And so really the very foundation of good digestive health is mindful eating, because if you can't break it down, you can't really absorb it. And then what happens is fermentation, bloating, constipation, or diarrhea. So eating in a fast manner is actually one of the very common reasons why people have digestive issues. So you want to take about 2 minutes to still your mind, and you can set your watch. There's also a wonderful app called the Heart Math Inner Balance device, which is a biofeedback device. If you're into gadgets and phone apps and stuff, you can clip it to your ear, and you can actually see if your body is in a what's called parasympathetic or rest and digest, or in a fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system state. So those tools are sometimes helpful. Or just set a timer and do some deep belly breathing and start to think about your food, and maybe even approach your food with a sense of gratitude that you are able to have this food, that you have access to this food. It might be a wonderfully prepared homemade meal. You might have gotten takeout. You might have whatever it may be, but there's some human effort was involved to produce this food for you. So gratitude is a wonderful way to get out of fight or flight. A lot of people right now are really scared, are really worried what happens to them, what will happen to all of us, and what will happen with the world. Really, it's a very shaky place to be in when it's a very existential fear for a lot of people. So practicing gratitude, even in small ways, can really break through this cycle of fear. So this is really now more important than ever, even if it's small, tiny bits of gratitude. And especially if you have a lot of food reactions, right? If you are somebody who has histamine intolerance, or you have salicylate sensitivities, there is this sense that you have to be afraid of food. And part of the retraining that we do is to teach you to kind of talk to the food, almost to say, I'm thankful. This is healthy for me. This won't harm me. And so really reframing from a sense of fear to a sense of gratitude and nourishment. So that's important. Enjoy and eating very slowly. Sometimes it's helpful if you feel very activated to do very specific breathing activities before eating. So really experiencing your digestive system, really tuning into your belly, tuning into your stomach, tuning into the sensation where you feel tightness. I often feel, if I feel stressed or fearful, I feel a tightness in my solar plexus, which is right under your rib cage. And that is often a fear center. So especially breathing into that center is going to be helpful. And feeling your belly really expand, stretching your diaphragm, because when we're fearful or stressed, our breathing becomes very shallow, and then we don't really stretch out that diaphragm, which is that big muscle that helps us breathe right underneath your ribs, that also massages your stomach into your transverse colon and other organs of digestion. You want to maybe hold your breath at the top of inhalation and the bottom of exhalation, and just do this for about 2 minutes, and then you are much more ready to eat. You can start putting your fork down between bites. I also suggest not eating when you're watching the news. I'm sometimes guilty. Yes, right now this is all very fascinating, what's happening in the world, and feeling a real sense of humanity when you watch news from other countries and how they're dealing with this pandemic, and really feeling very empathetic with humanity. But it's not the right time when you're eating. So putting your fork down between bites, having maybe some relaxing music playing, and chewing very slowly would be another good tip for you. And actually, there's this, I often get questions, what's the perfect diet? There is no perfect diet, I can tell you this right now. But what we know about the actual diet itself the perfect diet for humans, in a way, is about 80% plant-based, at least 80% plant-based, because plants and it's not just vegetables, but grains have a lot of what are called polyphenols and other phytochemicals in them that really help with many different aspects of health. And we'll have another do-it-yourself gut health in upcoming weeks, very likely, where we talk more about the plant-based diet. So this is sort of the beginning of the digestive process. If you're on the biphasic diet, if you're transitioning off the biphasic diet, any of those times, it's still important to consider how you actually eat and how you approach your food. That makes a big difference in overall digestion. All right, let's see here if I have any questions. Let's see. Oh, wow, it's already been 23 minutes. So let's see if there are any specific questions about this topic that you have. There are some comments here. What to do after herbal treatment? That's too broad, Lou. I'm not sure what you mean by that. There are a lot of things that you do after you complete SIBO treatment. You can retest to ensure that it's gone, because if your symptoms persist, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily SIBO. It can be that you've treated SIBO, but it's not, your symptoms were maybe not due to SIBO. You may have overlapping issues. So it's always important to retest, I find. Okay, another question. Hi, doc. I have a question. I've done stool test. It came back high level of beta-glucuronidase. Is taking D-calcium glucarate safe to treat this? I have done as well the SIBO test. It came back with both methane and hydrogen, borderline after 120 minutes. Okay, so step one is high beta-glucuronidase. Does not necessarily mean you have to treat that with calcium D-glucarate. Calcium D-glucarate is something that will bind. I've done other Facebook Lives where I talk about this as well, so you might want to go to the video library. For those of you just joining, I've made some comments about the video library on the SIBO Doctor Facebook page. where you can ask, where you can peruse and see if your questions are also answered in more detail. But what I can tell you is that it's only an issue if you have a picture of estrogen dominance or a high estrogen level. So this is relevant to women that have premenstrual syndrome or estrogen dominant conditions. In a man also that has low testosterone, where some of that may be converted to estrogen, and then beta-glucuronidase can be high. And then it warrants treatment, but it doesn't necessarily warrant treatment other than dealing with microbiome restoration. And if you have high levels of methane and hydrogen after 120 minutes, that's not SIBO. That's very likely more of a large intestinal overgrowth, where this is all relevant to the beta-glucuronidase as well. So you might want to follow up with a stool test. There are about 33 species of bacteria that produce beta-glucuronidase, and it has to do with the Bacteroidetes phylum, and that requires that you really work with somebody that can do microbiome restoration. Jared asks, I can't digest protein. What can I do? Okay, so the primary issue of protein digestion usually relates to hydrochloric acid or stomach acid. If you're on stomach acid, you still can't digest it. It might be the type of protein that you're eating. Some people just are not very good with animal proteins. Some people are better with plant-based proteins. I know that's the case for me. I can't handle a lot of animal. I barely eat it, but I do much better on a vegetarian diet personally. Anyways, so hang on, my light just went out, did it? Oh yeah, I think my battery's running down. All right, still. So let's see. So hydrochloric acid is a good consideration, but also a lot of people are enzyme deficient. So I would look into enzymes. You can ask your practitioner. It's also discussed a lot more in detail in the SIBO Success Plan that we talked about earlier. And I will just put this in, actually, I will put this back up here. So the SIBO Success Plan, for those of you just joining us, is my all-encompassing course that I've created for people who are looking for answers about how to treat SIBO. And mainly I created it for people who had no access to practitioners. It can be used on your own, or it can be used if you're working with a practitioner as well. Do a lot of plant-based foods hard on your belly sometimes? Yes, it depends. So if you some of them are better than others. So tune in when we talk about sprouting, Leslie. We will talk about that probably in a couple of weeks, of how to sprout correctly. And that often takes care of this fermentation issue that we see with legumes and things like that. I'll take a couple more questions and then I'm going to sign off. We're trying to keep them short, sort of. But remember, we're here every week, so we can answer your questions, and hopefully these tips and videos are helpful for you on your journey to helping yourself and your gut feel better. Beth asks, hello, I have SIBO and now had diarrhea for well over a week. I thought it was the stress of processing this global crisis. It's quite draining. However, it doesn't seem to be resolving. That really depends on what you're treating, and a week into treatment isn't long enough. So give it a little longer. I hope you're working with a practitioner. That would be really advisable, and especially now if things are not improving as quickly as you expect them. I can see my internet is not the best. I'm hoping there's not too many stops and goes. Hang in there. Do a lot of the breathing techniques. Also the meditation that Sarita Ford did last time. Look at the video library in the SIBO Doctor page. And wishing you all the best with that. It is a very stressful time. And if you're even slightly sensitive to stress with your gut, then this can be definitely a contributing factor as to why things are not improving. Jim asks, did antimicrobial treatment for 45 days with GI Synergy. I'm not familiar with that product. And Megaspore probiotics and no change. Is it worth trying other antimicrobials instead? So firstly, what I would do, because 45 days on an antimicrobial is the 6 weeks that is recommended to do a herbal treatment. Remember that for hydrogen, the classic herb is berberine, and you need a good dose of that. There are a lot of products out there that do not use the right amount of berberine, and they're underdosing, and that means it's just not really working. So first thing, what I would do is I would probably retest, and that is what's recommended by SIBO experts such as myself, is that you don't just continue with gut treatments, because they can also affect your microbiome, right? So we want to save our healthy microbiome, our healthy bacteria, and I've had patients that were on oregano oil, which is pretty strong, for like 6 months. That's inappropriate. You don't want to do that. So step one is understanding if there's been any shift in your numbers on the breath test, and then you can proceed from there. I know it's a cumbersome and sometimes sometimes more costly way of doing it, but sometimes it's actually not a more costly way of doing it, because what you might find out is that SIBO is resolved, but now you have to look elsewhere. And I can't stress enough how many times that happens with my patients or people that were referred to me, and I do a SIBO test, they've been cleared, and yet they're still taking antimicrobials, and that's just not appropriate. So think about retesting. Okay, last question is from Lou. I have been dairy, gluten-free, sugar-free, and doing low FODMAP diet since mid-January. I'm underweight, losing a lot of hair, and scalp is oily, flaky, dry skin. Lou, I'm sorry, but this probably means that you need to have somebody who understands your case, because this could be a number of things. It sounds like a lot of patients that have of mine that have a lot of other underlying issues. It could be thyroid related. You could have an enzyme deficiency. You could have malabsorption. You could have leaky gut. So we can't just throw out like a product for you. It really requires a bit more analysis. So if you don't have a practitioner, we do have a database of SIBO treating practitioners that are also on the let me bring up that website again. If you go to the SIBODoctor.com, we have a Find a Practitioner database that we have just overhauled over the last 6 months, because we released the SIBO Mastery course for practitioners and are listing only people that really, really have it down in terms of how to treat it successfully. So I do recommend that you work with somebody. A lot of practitioners do distant and telemedicine, especially at these times. So it's somebody that can comb through your lab records and things like that. That is usually what's required when you have a more non-straightforward case of SIBO, because a lot of people have more than one thing going on. Wonderful people, I wish you all the best out there, and use this time for rather than focusing on the fear of I've also been affected. I've had to really reduce my staff, unfortunately, and reduce hours and things like that. We're all affected. But what I'm excited about, or maybe not excited, is not the right word, but hopeful about, is that we are all in this together, and surely humanity can not just solve this problem, but perhaps emerge with a brighter future somehow, with more understanding, with more unity. So that's what I'm focusing on. And meantime, I've planted a vegetable garden just today. I think my fingernails are still dirty. And that was a very joyful experience to put the first seeds in there. So I've planted my rocket, which is arugula, spring onions, and my good friend Bo helped actually built it. I just put the seeds in. So thank you for tuning in. I wish you all the best wherever you are in the world, and we'll tune in again next Thursday. Until then, take care.